No one hanging out on outside there? Waiting for Rick and Dave? No, okay. Right, very quickly, thank you very much, as ever, for the ongoing support, and hopefully we're starting to see some rewards from that. I'm looking forward to the game very much at 3 o'clock. And thanks for coming today. I'm sorry it's a bit early. The reason it's a bit early is quite obvious, really, but, you know, the Fans Fest guys said, well, you can only do it this time because otherwise you have to cancel the Fans Fest. So, you know, I think we made the right choice there. So, there you go. We're going to be out of here in about an hour. 11 o'clock, 5 past, that kind of thing. So otherwise, I'll get a kicking from Gary, and I don't want that. It's very good for us to have the opportunity to hear this. So, you know, we're very, very, very happy to be here, and it's going to be repeated very often over the next couple of years, or, you know, whatever the time frame is. And I'm going to be chairing it, and I will just pass the questions on as appropriate. Please, you know, anything you want is up for grabs. It is, I'm told, being streamed live. They haven't told me yet whether it's live on BBC One or whether it's live on the Argyle website, but I think we probably have to assume the latter. And you can certainly assume the latter is true in the context of some highlights, which will be put together later. Although, I hope they put together the highlights of Argyle versus Cheltenham before this one, because I think that's why we're all here together. So, as I say, I'll direct the questions on. Today we have people who have apologised for not being here. I have 2 apologies. The 2 apologies are from Colin Sexstone and from Tony Rathel. They're both very, very sorry. Wish us well in the event. They both have long-standing family things that just means they can't be here. So, 2 apologies from those guys. I have on my left here. Who's on the left? Richard Holliday. David Felwick. And of course, you know James Brent, and you know Martyn Starnes. That's who we have.
And Peter Jones.
And Peter Jones. So there we go. So it's really over to you. Just so you know, there's a roving mic which Rick is going to start, and then maybe we can just leave it to go around organically. And I have been given some questions by people who have not been able to come. Now I'll keep those in reserve, and I'll get to those if the guys in the room are, you know, run out of things to ask us. So I've got some spares here, but I'd really like you to go first. So who's up first?
Good morning, gentlemen. The government has made a statement that they're looking to put a supporter on the board. What is your feelings about that in view of the fact that PASB was a failure?
And I'll take that one. Yes, I mean, I think we're very interested in the government proposal. We don't have the details yet, but I believe the Shadow Minister for Sport is actually coming down to Plymouth, and you'll get a chance to talk to the CEO, and we'll perhaps be able to bottom it out. I mean, I come from a background of employee participation, basically. I mean, John Lewis, we have 5 elected directors, and I'm very much in favour. I think, though, you've got to view it against the background of private ownership, company law, director responsibilities. And in some circumstances, a bit like the PASB, perhaps, you know, the expectation exceeds the reality. And I know that some supporter directors in other clubs in the past have sort of entered as angels and ended up as devils because their supporters feel they ought to be able to make a great deal of difference and exert real influence, and they haven't been able to. So in principle, I think we're interested, very much in favour, in fact, provided it can be made to work. But as I say, with private companies, it's sometimes a bit difficult. So, I mean, we were very much in favour of PASB, but as you know, that didn't work quite as effectively as we might have wished. So we'll look at this proposal, and if there's something there, fine.
Okay, thanks very much.
Before we move on, and who's next? Before we move on, can I just say, Keith, that as someone who sat in a lot of those meetings, I think that characterising it as a total failure is wrong, because we certainly benefited enormously from the opportunity for feedback and the stuff we got back from the fans. So, you know, it's a start. Right, who's over? Who's next?
Ever since the meeting with Tudor Evans was made public, whereas he made a statement, I believe, that the hotel at the new grandstand complex is a dead duck, more or less. can confirm that in view also of the Drake Circus complex going up with the cinemas going on in that complex, that the new grandstand, when the plans come out, will be more than just a grandstand and an ice rink. Will the grandstand be altered from the original plans that's been published up to now?
Great. Struggling with the mic, so my apologies for that. They always give me the difficult one, don't they? So, okay. Thank you. The position on the grandstand is that I'd rather comment on what's happening here, if you don't mind, as opposed to what's happening or isn't happening at Drake's, because that's clearly a matter of British Land of the Council. The plans that we've got planning consent for, I think to implement those today in that form would be very, very challenging. And as I say, I'd rather not go into the reasons as to why it would be very challenging. So what we're looking at doing is going ahead with the grandstand first, and getting the grandstand for us is absolutely critical to the club, and it's critical for two main reasons. One, the club does need to generate additional income on both match days and non-match days, and secondly, the accommodation there is not fit for purpose. You know, we can't expect our fans to carry on using facilities which are that dated. So something needs to happen. So the decision we've taken as a board is to go for Plan B, which does involve working with another institution to build the grandstand first, and then the old car park, this area, is something that we'll do as a second phase. Those discussions are sort of pretty well advanced, but they aren't finalised yet, and until they're finalised we can't announce and go forward. So we're sort of making good progress. It is the grandstand we're looking at. We're looking at modifications to the plans that we've currently got for the grandstand, substantively in terms of the number of seats, etc. It'll be very similar. We will have greater flexibility to add further seats as we progress up the leagues, if there is demand for it, than we previously had. So it's broadly the same grandstand. It won't be done at the same time as the rest of the development, and we do have greater flexibility to add to it.
It was also said at the time the statement from Chief Executive was made public that you were hoping to make a statement on the new plans by the end of October. I know it's not quite the end of October. Can you give us any timescale on when you hope to put out new plans for public viewing?
Well, in terms of the statement as to proceeding and the time period over which we'll be proceeding and so on, we do need that to be approved by the partner that we're working with on delivering the grandstand. So until that's been fully approved, we won't make the announcement. It feels as if it should be quite imminently, but I appreciate that there have been delays already, so we can't commit to a date until we have feedback from the other party on that, which we're hoping to get relatively soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, who's next? Who's next? Tony.
James, we've been now a year, we're now into our second season with the Far Post Club closed. And we understood for very good reasons 18 months ago why it was going to happen, but still there's no sign of a new stand, despite your encouraging words now. That being the case, and there are many Far Post Club members who are still upset that it's closed when it's good enough for Sky when they visit to go into. Can you give us some encouragement that it will be reopened in the not too distant future?
Thanks, Tony. You stand up, please. Thanks, Tony. We've looked at this, Tony. I mean, Gary Maguire approached us a little while ago about the reopening of the Far Post Club, and it would be extremely expensive. I mean, the place has basically been condemned, and we've looked at the possibility of refurbing it with Gary, and we think it's just be too costly given the hopefully the imminence of getting things moving on the grandstand.
Well, with all due respect, the imminence was stated 18 months ago, imminently, a new grandstand. And as far as I can understand from what James is saying this morning, it's still imminent, although we're clearly on plan B now. It's just very, very sad that a lot of us now are having to migrate elsewhere when we would rather be spending the money with Plymouth Argyle. So do you have a figure how much it would cost to put straight, even using Gary?
Well, the sort of figure we were talking about was about £25,000, I think, from recall. So it's a lot of money to spend for a facility that may only be available for a relatively short period of time, and of course we've got to raise that money to refurbish it.
Right, who's next? There's someone over there. Right.
Sorry about that. As we probably all agree here, we know that Luke is probably the best goalkeeper in the league. But what concerns me is that both home and away, he obviously gets a lot of really nasty abuse. And what's worrying is with all the stuff in the press at the moment, whether there's anything the stewards, particularly here at Home Park, can do when he gets that sort of abuse from away fans continually throughout the game, and it appears that nothing is done. Obviously, when we're away, he gets it as well on a much bigger extent, but nothing ever seems to be done. And I was just wondering if there is anything that can be done.
I totally agree with the sentiment of that, and we were aware clearly that in the Exeter City game that there might be some particular attention, and I think the stewards did act very rapidly in identifying troublemakers and dealing with them. I mean, I've spoken to Luke several times about it, and I think Luke has an acceptance of the fact that he has got that scar on his history, which is, he feels really it really hurts him. And I think he's almost accepting that is something that he is going to get when we have fans here and away. He's sort of accepting of it. I mean, if we spot troublemakers who are sort of driving the bad behaviour, the stewards are under very clear instructions to identify them and whip them out, as they did in the Exeter City game. But it's going to happen to a degree, and I think Luke is accepting of that.
Right, who's next? Rick, there's over there and then over there.
Hello.
Oh.
We're okay. It's a question about the plan B of the grandstand. I know you said that approximately it would be the similar size to what the original one was, but it would be able to grow a bit bigger in terms of expansion. I wondered if you could give me a figure on, after all possible expansion, the very maximum that the capacity could be after all the possible expansions are done.
Could I answer that, Sam, with an approximate? And so, if we are some seats that are short, please don't vilify me for it. But it gets us up towards the 20,000 figure. But don't, if it's 19,999, please don't criticise me for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, actually, I'll go back to the point about Luke. Does the club ever contact the away fans, the away club, and perhaps preempt it and say, can we have some protection? Because for someone who actually lives in Exeter, unfortunately because of work and things, I know there is an element that really want to have a go at him and think it will affect the team. And I just think last time there was no protection at all.
I'm going to pass this back to James in a sec, but I just want to say that from a personal level, as a group of us, We were outraged by what happened at Exeter City last year, and we made our feelings known to the club. And the club, I think the club, Exeter City that is, I just didn't think they knew what to do. I just don't think they'd experienced anything like it before. I'm not making an excuse for them at all. They just didn't know what to do. So I don't know exactly what happens in the days and weeks before games. All I know is that this is something, as James has said, which is extremely difficult to control. All we can do, really, beyond the kind of conversations before the game, is make sure we look after our player, our guy. And it's sad we couldn't have the guys here today, but they're preparing for a game. But John Harbin, on the staff here, one of his roles, his overall role is fitness, and fitness means physical fitness, and it also means mental fitness, and it also means psychological and emotional support. And we can assure you that John is absolutely 100% on the case with this, and indeed on all the kind of issues that affect these guys. So, James, you want to add that?
Yeah, I'll just add to that very briefly. I mean, it's probably that game was probably the most emotional experience that I've had in football. I was absolutely furious, and spoke to the Exeter City chairman on holiday, spoke to the vice chairman. We did look very seriously at taking regulatory action as a consequence, and Luke asked us not to. There's part of it, I think, and clearly people should speak to Luke directly on this, but part of it is I think he's accepting that it happens, and secondly, the sort of local focus is bad enough, but if it gets escalated to the national stage, then it becomes even more hurtful. So you're totally right. There are conversations taking place, and those will continue in advance of the next Exeter City game. And I think the board at Exeter City know what our expectations are for that. So that's great.
Right, who's next?
Hi. Is there any possibility that the second refreshment stand within the...
Sorry, can you ask Rick to fiddle with your mic as they say?
Is there any possibility?
That's good.
Is there any possibility that the second refreshment stand within the grandstand can be reopened? There's two reasons why I think it's a good idea. Currently, you have a choice of either missing the last few minutes of the first half or the first few minutes of the second half because it's taking so long to get refreshments. And secondly, I think that it could be seen as a bit of a false economy because it's becoming a choice not to use the stand. So I wonder if there's any possibility that could be reopened.
Yeah, can I take that away and speak to James Greenacre about that? I think the issue in the past has been the cost of staffing the second kiosk and the amount of business it's going through. But if you're telling me that there is a clear demand to have a second kiosk, then I'll make arrangements for that to be looked at seriously. Okay.
Thank you.
On the pitch, things are obviously improving quite significantly, especially over the last couple of months, which we're all really pleased to see. My question relates to the financial side of things. The club is required, obviously, as you know, to adhere to a salary cap by the Football League. Despite that and relatively healthy gates, obviously we'd always expect them a little bit higher, the club continues to make a loss off the pitch, and we now owe more money than we did 12 months ago. Could you explain a little bit about that and how you see the future of the club financially, please?
Yes, you're obviously referring to the accounts that have been recorded at Companies House recently, which showed a 1.4 million loss, which includes £500,000 worth of depreciation, which is an accounting charge emanating from the exit from administration. That's a huge improvement on the period ending 2012, and we expect another huge improvement this season, where we're hoping to get to a break-even situation, which has been the objective ever since James took over the club. Football clubs have got a lot of fixed costs associated with them, and it takes quite some time to unravel those fixed costs and get down to a workable structure where you can break even. And at the same time, you're having to stay competitive with other clubs in the league, which we've been desperately trying to do by maintaining football budgets where they are. So whilst we would like to have got to break even sooner, when I came into the club, I sort of categorised it as trying to stop an oil tanker and turn it round. Well, we've stopped it, we've turned it round. I think we're going in the right direction now, and hopefully financially within the next 6 to 12 months we'll be even stronger than we are at the moment.
Could I just sort of add a bit to that, because it's quite important the context. I think when we took the club over the previous year, it had lost £8 million off turnover of 10 million. We dropped through to League Two. Our turnover fell to about 4 million, so about 40%. And so to get to break even, when your turnover falls by 60%, to get to break even from an £8 million loss is really challenging. When we agreed to look at taking over the club, we got 1 point from 9 games. The consensus was that we were going to get relegated out of the Football League. So we needed to invest in the squad. We've carried on that investment. It's certainly my view. We had a board meeting yesterday, and my view is one way that you don't get a business back to good financial standing is to take investment out of the product. We need to have a high quality team winning games, playing good quality football to drive up that £4 million to a higher number, rather than to try and shrink the football budget and sort of drive down turnover. So it's really, really tough. I think football is probably the toughest business I've been involved in to get to financial stability and sustainability. I think we are, touch wood, pretty close to getting there, and I think it's full credit to Martyn and the management team and to my board colleagues that we are sort of pretty close to the holy grail on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I'm going to add a little tiny bit on that, and that is that I think we're predicting, and the very latest predictions, a number for the game today that starts with a 6. Everyone talks about, everyone wants a good squad and the club to finance a good squad, which is obviously at the core of what we do in terms of product. At the same time, there's concern, an understandable concern, about the time it takes to turn the club around from being in a loss situation to breaking even and then moving on from that. Maybe even building a reserve. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But you know what? If we get anything less than 7,000 today, I'd be terribly, terribly disappointed. We've got a team that has gone out. Most of you won't have been there for obvious reasons. But Wimbledon on Tuesday night was the kind of game that Paul Sturrock 12 years ago would have described as a brilliant biting and scratching goalless draw away from home. The kind of point that gives you a really good chance of going up. It was fantastic. So it's 4.5 full league games without letting in a goal. We did very well against Leyton Orient. Fantastic performance down here. We did extremely well against Swindon. Of course we beat them, which takes us through. So the product is now so much better than it was even a year ago. And yet, what we've got is something like 3,900 season tickets, less than we had last year, 2 years ago rather. And we're having crowds of about 6.5. Now, I'm not moaning. This is not a whine, it's not a whinge. Never ever do that. We have to make our case. But it's up to you to make the case as well. Because what's really going to drive this club forward is when we're getting 7.5 and 8. And one of the things that I dread is that we're live on Sky on November the 15th. And yet again, all the viewers around the country and on the highlights later on see rows and rows of empty seats. Because Plymouth can't be asked to get up and see that great game, against the traditional rivals, Portsmouth, and with a fantastic day as well with all Royal Marines, blah, blah, blah. So, we do everything we can. We can always be better, and we'll strive to be better. But we'd like a bit more from Plymouth, to be honest with you, and I think you can help us with that. So that'll be my plea to you today. Right, another question.
We lost the youth setup in Chiveney to Southampton. Are we worried that we might lose other youth setups around the area to them? I mean, they've obviously got a fantastic setup, but I would say that's probably a way forward for us, isn't it? Is to make sure we've got a stream of young players coming through. Are we worried about it? And B, is there anything we can do about it?
Are you referring to the development centre at Chiveney?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we are worried about it. I've made representations to Southampton Football Club without too much success, it has to be said. I'm afraid it is a bit of dog eat dog out there, and the Premier League teams are very active trying to find that gem all over the country. Arsenal have got centres of excellence and that type of thing, which I believe are franchised, just carry their badge, but they're basically setting them up, branding these centres as Arsenal or Southampton, whatever it might be. The kids are paying, I believe, to participate, and it is encroaching on our natural territory for trying to find and develop talent. All we can do, I believe, at this stage, given the state of the regulations, is to try and run our academy and our centres of excellence and our long-term development centres as well as we possibly can. And clearly that means we've got to try and engage the best coaches that have got the interests of Argyle at heart and are going to refer those best boys through to Argyle rather than to any other club. I think that the feedback I get from Kevin and from Mark Lovell, because the community run development centres as well, is that they're trying very, very hard to fend off clubs like Southampton, and indeed Exeter have tried to set up another centre in Cornwall, which concerns us. All we can do is basically do a really good job and make sure that the boys want to come to us rather than any other club. And of course, if it's a Premier League club, they only have to sort of take the lad up to their facilities in Southampton, and clearly they can't help but being impressed because Southampton invested a lot of money, and we've lost the boy to Southampton this season. We're very disappointed with it, but the regulations work very much in the favour of the Premier League clubs and not ourselves, and all we can do is negotiate the very best settlement that we can in the interest of the football club.
Okay.
Just wanted to ask whether there'll be any further investment in the sport come January, sort of like ready for new players to come in, just bolster the squad, so that the results can keep going.
I mean, we've made it very clear, I think, that we are very supportive of John Sheridan. John has made his ambition very clear, that he wants to get us promoted this season. So if John perceives there to be a need, there's an open door to come and discuss it. At the moment, he thinks he's got a promotion squad. His challenge at the moment, as I'm sure he would offer if he was here today, is he's got a number of players who he thinks are perfectly able and talented to start, and a number of those are having to start on the bench. So he doesn't feel that there's a development need at the moment. Should that arise, then obviously there's very much an open door to come and talk to us about it. Okay.
I mean, all I'd add to that is look at the strength of the bench today. Those boys all want to be in the first team, So, right, anyone else?
Lady over there.
Lady.
I would like to add something to that. In January, it's a bit of a worry that somebody may come in for people like Ruben Reid and Luke McCormick, and then we really would be stuffed, I feel.
I'll start and then I'll move it on down the line. I don't think there's a club in the world that doesn't have that challenge, And there are all sorts of factors involved in all that. The Hurahan thing in the summer. Were we disappointed to lose Hurahan? Of course we were. When a boy like that, however, decides that he wants to move up a league, increase his salary enormously, etc., 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 I've worked in all sorts of other environments, primarily the advertising business and all the rest of it, but one of the things I learned quite quickly is you don't want to be paying people who don't want to be there, and so it's a challenge we will face. However, what I can also say is that at this moment, on what's the day today, 25th of October or something, there's nobody in for either of those guys you mentioned, or indeed any other members of the squad. We'll just have to take it as it comes, but we very much hope to hang on to them.
Yeah, I'd probably just add to that. For me, that's there's sort of problems in life, aren't there? And there are quality problems and poor quality problems. And the fact that we had no one interested in our squad last January, I think, was a poor quality problem, because we weren't performing at the level that we would like to. The fact that we are very fearful that we'll have people interested in members of our squad this January is a good quality problem to have to deal with, and we're sort of hoping it won't happen. But the fact that players are playing well is clearly great. It's David, do you want to?
No, I was only going to just reiterate, in fact, what Peter said. You know, it's inevitable, isn't it, that if you're doing well, people will analyse why you're doing well. They'll spot your winners, and inevitably, you'll get approaches. All we can do is try and keep the guys as happy as we can, to say that you know, if they all stay together, they'll all be in Division 1. So our aim is to try and keep the morale up, to keep building the team's success, and hopefully hold them together.
Right, where else? There's a couple of guys over there. Oh, you got someone here. No, sorry, over there. Two people over there. Hands up again. I thought you'd seen someone over there. Your eagle eyes.
Just like to follow up on the Portsmouth game. I think we all agree we don't want to see empty seats on the TV. Why don't you do some offers, quids for a kid, whatever? In the past, the excuse has always been the season ticket holders don't like offers. Well, actually, I think if you asked around, the season ticket holders would love to see full seats on a TV game. I mean, or give the tickets to school kids, anything to get people in those seats just for that one-off game. They're going to buy scarves, pasties, whatever, to sort of surely bring some sort of revenue into the club for that game.
We obviously look at opportunities to do promotions, and we are sort of very much aware of the importance of season ticket holders, and sort of diluting the advantage that they get from buying their tickets up front. So we do tend to look at promotional activities with a certain amount of caution. And as far as the Portsmouth game is concerned, you know, it should stand on its merits. It's a massive game for us, massive game for Portsmouth, and with it being Armed Services Day as well, you know, I think we can reasonably expect a big crowd. We just want to encourage more and more people coming. We'll certainly look at the promotional activity, but we're 3 weeks out now, and people are already buying tickets, so we may miss out, but we'll take another look at it on Monday and see if there's something we can do.
And I think the other thing we can do, just to add to that, is that it gives us some new audiences to address. You know, there's this old thing about, I apologise for doing this, I'm going to mention the words Tony and Blair. But the reason he was brilliant in 1995, or whatever it was, he realised that to win the election he had to talk beyond the Labour base. Got to reach new audiences and convince them. I think this gives us a chance to talk to new audiences and convince them. The military nature of the game, the fact there's going to be fantastic stuff happening out there, which you'll never see anywhere else. People love all the military wives type thing. I'm not saying they're coming, but you know, all that kind of stuff. We've got the sponsors on the back of the shirts now, Royal British Legion. So I think what we need to do is reach out and get our message out there and say, come on, it's a great game to come and see. So yeah, we'll be looking at all that stuff. All right? Thanks. There's someone else down there. Yeah.
I'm an optimist, being an Argyle fan, obviously. Long term, when we do get our finances straight, and I'm sure we will eventually, is there any loyalty that would be paid back to the fans that turn up week after week, especially on away games? I was one of those. Obviously at Wimbledon on Tuesday, that we actually have a reduction, you know, like a 5% if we were a season ticket holder for more than 10 years, because I know we're going to encourage new people, but a lot of people in Plymouth are actually going through financial restraints at this moment in time, generally in the environment. So not forget the loyal fans that we actually have week after week.
So you're thinking actually about something in which you demonstrate that, you know, you've kind of gone on X trips away up to places like Carlisle and so on and so forth, and therefore some kind of loyalty bonus built on points or something. Who wants to talk about that? Martyn, do you want to talk about
I think we're extremely aware of the loyalty that fans have shown through difficult times here, and of course we want to recognise that. We are actually in talks at the moment with a company where we may be able to introduce some sort of loyalty scheme, which I think will be of interest to those of you that have been following the club through thick and thin. I can't say too much more than that at the moment because it's early stages, and it may or may not prove to be viable in the form it's been presented. But we are acutely aware of the support that people have given to the club over a number of years and through very, very difficult times, and obviously we will want to recognise that.
Thanks. Right. Oh, over there, Sam again. A veteran.
Thank you very much. Just a little question about the kind of accessibility of the meeting. I mean, don't get me wrong, you said you couldn't cancel the fan special, I totally get that. But I kind of wonder, could it have maybe happened after the game? Because obviously there'll be a lot of people still around. Some people do come into the tent after the game, but you know, it's only kind of half an hour or so. And the other thing is, I know you said at the start that maybe the highlights would be uploaded after this. We've got some great dialogue going. I just wondered if it would be possible for the full recording to be uploaded, because I think people would really want to hear it. It's got a two-part question there.
I'm going to answer it then. So the first part, I'm going to say that. Well, you want to do that, Martyn?
Rob has just whispered in my ear that it will be the full session that will be uploaded.
And as for the first one, I think that could be a very good idea, and let's have a look at it. All right. So thanks. Who's next?
Owing to the fact that I live 300 miles away, I don't get to Home Park very often. Every time I come, I look up at the back of the Denport and I think, have they changed that logo yet? But no, it's still the new world, and it breaks my heart to see it. Are there any plans to update that?
I've got to confess, we don't have any plans, but we'll make some.
I mean, there's a sort of wider question as well. I think that whole frontage, it's great frontage. It's a statement of arrival in Plymouth from the Outland Road sort of end, and it's Argyle. So I think there's probably a wider question as part of this development. Do we take that opportunity? There are clearly things we're looking to do as part of the development of the new grandstand, which aren't directly related to the grandstand, in terms of putting up a screen, for example. And I think that's probably something that we should make sure we look at when we have builders around to do it. That's great.
Anyone over? Yeah, Rick.
Going back. Going back to the finances, and obviously recently you've had a loan to the City Council with the hope of paying off some of the creditors earlier and reducing the liability over the next year or two. Is it too early to say what sort of interest you've had from any people who've got some outstanding liability? It might take up the offer, and also, obviously you only can give one answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Can you see any problem in us beating up all our liabilities when the deadline date comes? And is there any reason for the support to be worried?
It's proved to be quite difficult to locate some of the people that owe the money under the scheme, and it's a work in progress at the moment. There's 300 people that we've got to try and contact and speak to about the offer. So we have extended the time in which they can take up the offer, and as I say, it's a work in progress, and we'll see how things develop over the next few weeks. And your other question was?
Well, do you see any problem with the club meeting their liabilities when the deadline date comes?
No, clearly it's a challenge, but we think that we will have plans in place to to deal with that challenge should it arise in 2 years' time.
Thank you.
Could I just give a bit of context to that again, because it's quite often one hears half the story being played out and not the other half. We have actually repaid, I think the football creditor debt we bought the club was 3.6 million, and we are down to under 2 million, and we, by the time we get to October 2016, it's forecast to be at about £1 million if we don't sort it out now. So it's in terms of the £1 million, a lot of money is not saying it's not, but relative to the scale of the challenge we started with, it's 25% of the problem that we inherited. So we've made some pretty good progress on that. I mean, I totally understand why people focus on the challenge ahead as opposed to the achievement to date, but we've made pretty big inroads into that already. That's great, thanks.
I mean, just so you know, that it exercises all of us, and we're looking at the best way to deal with it. We think that taking a loan and offering early payment hopefully will clear a fair percentage. It might only clear some of it, and then we'll have another plan to meet the outstanding. It's something that we know we have to deal with. So as far as the supporters are concerned, as James has said, you should feed off the fact that we've already knocked it down as far as we have, and we've got the rest to deal with, and you should have confidence that we can.
And I would continue to stress the fact that this is inherited. This is stuff that we're still clearing up after what happened 3 years ago, which was extraordinary. Right, anyone else? Tony again, goodness me.
I'm interested in Martyn Peter and what you were saying about opening up to a wider audience, as yet unknown, to get more and more people in. And then I remember that it was only Monday of this week that the board communicated where this meeting was taking place, what time it would be taking place, and who would actually be there, and that we, the fans, would be invited. So I'm a little confused about communication from the club, and particularly from the board, and how you propose in future to improve.
I'm going to start that. I'm going to pass it over to David and also Martin. Now, I was talking, Tony, as you well know, about not talking to the hardcore. I'm not talking, when I said we've got to expand our audience, I was talking about going beyond this. Now, I do accept that longer notice would have been better. It may, it does take a bit of time to get people together for the whole of the country at a time when the facilities aren't being used and all the rest of it. But I do take the point, and we need to do better in terms of communicating the time and date of these meetings a bit earlier. I accept that. The bigger question is about communication from the club in general. Again, I believe, and there are some extraordinary statistics about the reach of our Twitter account, the number of unique hits on our website. We're about the best in our league. We're probably near the top of League One, and we're halfway up the Championship on both those scores. We do very well on a lot of that stuff. I personally feel that in the context of, how would I describe it? Proactive marketing, maybe. There are things we could do, and there are things we are looking at doing. So let me reassure you that that is the case. And now, I'll pass you over to the man who probably created the finest brand in the whole of the UK, and that's Waitrose, and that's David.
Don't know what that's got to do with the the lack of timescale. I don't understand why it didn't go out. I mean, and maybe Rick and the Chief Executive can actually pick up the ball on that, because we, as a board, determined that we would have this supporters meeting before the Cheltenham game quite some time ago. So there's either a breakdown in communication internally, and we'll have a look at that. I believe that we should be giving you more notice. I think we can give you as much information as you ask for, and up to a point at these meetings. I think we're committed to 3 of these a year as a minimum, and of course the Chief Exec has his column, and hopefully through that keeps people up to date on a rolling basis. If you think there's more that we need to do, then perhaps you could let us know. But certainly you should have had more information earlier on the timing of the meeting and who was going to be here.
If I may just say, just to add on, David, you made some very good points, as did Peter before you. But actually, this wasn't aimed really at Martyn or Rick. This was really aimed purely at the board, because this is your meeting. And if you want to include Martyn in it, I noticed that Martyn didn't actually include this meeting in his own Herald column this week. And unfortunately, there is a subliminal message that goes out that this meeting and meetings like this aren't really important. And we, the fans, the Spartan few that we are, do appreciate them and want to interact with the club, but the overwhelming message is unfortunate, even if it's incorrect.
Well, I mean, all I can do is say, yeah, mea culpa, you know, because the board decided on when we were going to do it and how we were going to do it a while ago. The fact is it didn't come out early enough, didn't get the publication and the exposure that it should have done. So we'll look at that for the future. But it's our intention to be as open as possible.
What's very interesting, Tony, is, and what I encourage everyone to do is you know, we make mistakes. That was a mistake. Hands up. We have a concept at the hospital that I work at, which is what went well, better if, which is a sort of aspiration to continuous improvement, which is brilliant, and it's absolutely what we should be doing at this club. But there are a number of things that have been done, which have largely been, the majority have been at the initiative of the Chief Executive, which I think we need to congratulate. I think in terms of having these meetings, having 3 of these meetings a year, that is something which is, you know, at the forefront of fan engagement. I think the PASB, if it had worked, would have been beyond the forefront of that. Now, it didn't work for reasons that, you know, there's no point in debating now. But things like, for example, taking the big screen in the city centre and using that to advertise Argyle is a great example of collaboration between us and the council. There's a whole series of other things that are sort of happening. So in terms of challenge, because I think the challenge is absolutely fair, we cocked up on announcing this meeting. I think Sam's point is absolutely fair challenge as to, you know, should it be at a different time, at a different location, and we need to think about it. But let's not forget the fact that we are having this meeting. It's not being regulated in terms of we'll tell you what we want to tell you. It's open to everyone to ask their questions, and you know that's a positive in itself, I think.
I think all your points are well made, Tony. I should have mentioned it in my column. No question about that. That was an omission. I think the points about the timing and the location of these meetings is a point well made. When we were working out what we were going to do, we thought that a match day might be the best time to do it, particularly in view of where people have got to travel from to come to these meetings. If they're going to come here for a match day, it seems sensible to have it on a match day. If we do that, we've got limitations on where we can have it in terms of space. So the suite here seems to be the best place. The timing was one where we thought it would be better to have it before the game than after the game, when people may want to get away home. So if the consensus is that it would be better after the game, then obviously we can look at that. In terms of communications in general, I've said this to 1 or 2 people before, and I think I may have even said it to you, Tony, that football and this football club has moved on substantially over the years. I think, you know, I remember going to matches back in the 60s, and the only communication you got from your club was a little flimsy 3 or 4 page programme. That was it. With technology as it is, and with social media, the programmes, the websites and that sort of thing, communication has never been as good as it is now with the fans. But I think expectations will always go ahead of what you're able to achieve. And we're very conscious of the need to communicate, and we do our best in the context of the resources we have available to do it, and we'll continue to try and improve. I mean, James has mentioned the policy at the hospital, and we are trying to do the same here, to have continuous improvement. Can we achieve that improvement as quickly as we would like? No, because we are constrained by resources at times. But have my assurance that we are looking to improve. We welcome your feedback, and we will try and utilise that feedback to do things better in future.
Is there anyone else out there? Because we're kind of going near the... Right, over you go. The microphone walk. Sounds like a 60s dance.
I just wondered if there are any plans for a sports bar in the new Plan B stadium.
Right, I think...
Especially in the light of the fact that the far post won't be reinstigated.
Yeah.
Yes, Sally, we are certainly looking seriously at providing that. We recognise the demand and the need for a facility of that nature, and we're going to do everything we can to deliver it.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
As we're talking about the grandstand, but with the grandstand being upgraded, is it intention to put in the ground, the whole of the ground, Wi-Fi? Has that ever been discussed?
Wi-Fi? That's the first time I've been asked that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. There is a project going ahead with the Football League now to look at how Wi-Fi can be introduced into grounds around the country. Obviously, with the upgraded grandstand, it's going to be very important that we have a strong Wi-Fi connection in there, and I think it'll be an opportunity, particularly in line with what we're discussing with the Football League, to put it throughout the stadium.
Do we have any others? We've got a couple of minutes left. We've got one over here.
You've all talked a little bit about putting the message out there and trying to spread the word of Argyle. I mean, it could be argued, and it has been argued by some, that the current manager of the football club, for all his strengths, doesn't perhaps sell the club in the area as well as former Argyle managers, and without mentioning a particular ex-Leicester City manager by name. That said, what more do you think he could be doing, through the Herald, through the media, to really sell the club, get people, both us as a group, because we need to be excited about it, we'll continue to be excited about it, but also put the message out there wider in general to the people of Plymouth, what's going on, come and join us, let's get on with this together, be part of it. What are your thoughts on that? What more do you think he could perhaps be doing?
I'll start on that, and one of the things that struck us is about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, when we saw John for the first time, met him for the first time, was his, I don't know, I've got to choose my words carefully here, but he's clearly a tough guy. He's a strong man, he's very, very, very focused and utterly committed to football in a way that only ex-footballers and very good ex-footballers are. As a tribe, they're a little bit different from us, and we have no valid views about football because we've never played it, So, but we were very struck by his toughness and his inner strength. And you've got to kind of look at all sorts of various qualities that people have. And I agree, it's wonderful if you get a bloke who's brilliant at the PR. But at that point, I have to say, we weren't looking at a guy who could do a great imitation of Les Dawson on the, whatever it is show. We were looking for a bloke who could dig us out of the shit, excuse my language. And we felt he was the right man. Now, moving forward, what's interesting about John is that he's got to really understand the city better, the people better. He loves the club. Don't be in any doubt about that. And those of you who went along to that recent Meet the Manager thing a couple of weeks ago will have seen that in spades. It's just one of the bits that he doesn't relish. And it's the same way that all of us have bits in life that we don't relish. However, what we have to do under those circumstances is complement it and have other people talking and have players talking, which we do, and have people like John Harbin talking, which we do, and have the coaches talking, which we do. So my personal opinion is that he's got a very, very, very good kind of combination of qualities. I'm not concerned about the fact that he's not the greatest PR man in the world. We just work around it. And that's my personal view. Others may feel different. Others may want to pick it up, but
No, I think
in that case, I'm either going to be beaten up afterwards or we'll move on to the next question. And that's over there.
Hello. Just about talking about raising money, have we got any players with any other clubs where we've got a sell-on clause, i.e. we'll get some money back, maybe like Connor is doing well at Barnsley at the moment and could be sold maybe in January. Would we get any money if that happened, or any other players out there?
Taking Connor explicitly, we've got not just sell-on clauses but very extensive add-on clauses as well. And that's a real focal point that we have as a board as we aren't a selling club in that we're developing people with the intention to sell, but we're hopefully going to continue to improve the quality of football and people will want to buy our players. So we're hopefully going to sell players because of the quality of talent we're developing. And there's a huge amount of focus that we put into sell-ons and add-ons. And those tend to be the bit from coming to football from outside. The focus tends to be on the buying club, that they want to focus on how much they're going to pay up front, and it's a much softer target to wear them down on the add-ons and sell-ons. And some of the add-ons are promotion to the Premier League. If you've got one player playing for Barnsley, promotion to the Premier League is unlikely to sort of happen anytime soon. But if you've got 20 players with Championship and League One clubs that have got those clauses, you'll hit the jackpot at some stage. So we put a lot of focus into that. We clearly have got a barren period, and I'm not going to sit here and criticise Peter Ridsdale or anyone else, but we clearly became a stressed selling club for a period in our history where we didn't get add-ons and sell-ons typically. We didn't get a lot of money either, but and so there's a barren period where we didn't get those benefits.
I'm very glad a couple of questions have come about football and all that kind of stuff, given we're a football club. Look, it's almost time to go. I was given a list of questions by Sally, actually. You said it was from someone who couldn't come. It's about 10 of them, and I think most of them have been covered, but just for the sake of form, I'm going to just pick one out here. It's back to the corporate stuff, if you like. I think I'm going to go for the second question, 2A actually, 2A out of 10. Why has it taken so long to stop losing money? The expensive pre-admin player contracts have been distant history for some time now. Now, I kind of think we've covered it, tangentially, and pretty closely actually, but I'm just going to give Martyn a quick go at it so we can tick it off the list.
Well, it's really, like I said before, there were football club is laden with fixed costs, and in coming out of administration, we also had some contracts that needed to be revised and improved. We have to sort of get an adjustment to our whole structure and to bring it in line with the revenues that we're able to generate, and it just takes time to get to that situation. And we're getting there. Obviously, when accounts come out, they're all historic, as my friend John knows there. We only just published the accounts for 31st December 13, and we're already 10 months on improving that situation, and we'll continue to improve it.
Could I just I think we can be a little bit too defensive on this and a little bit too sort of English in the response. I don't know who sent the question, but I'd love to sit down with them and encourage them to advise me how to take a business that was losing £8 million off turnover of 10, to take that down to breaking even off turnover of 4 million, and to do that at a time when we turn around the erosion in what is the core product of the club, which is winning football. So I'm 48 years old, and I'm learning more now than I was when I was 18. I love learning. So if it is possible for that person to come forward and tell me how we turned around quicker, I'd be really, really keen to learn. Thank you.
So Sally, if you'll let us know or put us in contact, that'd be extremely useful. Thank you very much. Right, has anyone got any more before we wrap up? Are we done? Are we done? I've got a question for you then. Oh, hang on, there's one over there very quickly. It's got to be the last one.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for giving up your time this morning. I found it really good, and I don't think you should beat yourselves up about the omission of not giving us too much notice. After all, if people want to come, they'll make They'll make the sacrifice of whatever else they were doing, and they'll make sure they're here, which of course is what we've all done. But maybe a little flippant, but looking for new markets, Mr. Brent has just become Chair of Governors of the University of Plymouth with 30,000 students. Now, even if you got 1% here, that would be something really, really good. I'll leave it with you.
Can I answer that on behalf of James, because I wouldn't want to embarrass him in his new position, but the fact is that the university is a partner of the football club, and we've been working with them over the last 12 months, and we have had various schemes in place to try and encourage students to attend matches here through the student union, and so far the take-up hasn't been that substantial. I don't know if the students have spent the money in the bar on the Friday night, so they've not been able to come to football on a Saturday. I'm not sure what the story is, but we're continuing to work on it. They've got a partnership focused team at the university. They're always coming up with ideas that they're introducing to us to try and get that engagement with the students. But I think the challenge for James is to probably go and make it conditional upon their degree that they come to a few Argyle matches.
I think the answer to that, Martyn, is thank you, but no.
Right, I've got three things to say then. Thank you very, very much, all of you, for coming along. Thank you very much for the questions. And of course, if you have any follow-ups, please feel welcome. You know our emails and all that kind of stuff, so do get in touch. Then I've got two questions to finish up with. The first one is, who's going to think about how they can just bring someone else along or boost the gate for Portsmouth so we can really fill the place up? Anyone? Yeah? Are we happy to all think about that? I just love to fill it out because it makes such a statement. It's Portsmouth, for God's sake. We can't fail against Portsmouth. And the final thing is, who thinks we're going to beat Cheltenham this afternoon between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock? Yeah, hands up, hands up. I think we need unanimity here, because otherwise we feel we've... No?
Tony's only put a pen up.
Come on. It's not bad, it's not bad. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Oh, hang on, Tony, what are you going to say? It was going to be a bit flippant, wasn't it? But, sorry. Thank you very much. Bye.